Greetings of peace and love, everybody. My name is Ram Hotep, broadcasting on behalf of the number 13, SignsAstrology.com. Okay, we're going to get into part 2 on this topic of the chosen ones. I decided to do a part 2 because I was looking over the information that I was channeling on part 1, and I always put out the information regardless to how complete or so-called incomplete it is, because it's always a message in it for someone. However, I was dissecting the information that I was putting out, and I decided to do a part 2 to kind of add to some of the things I was saying and to kind of better explain some of the things that I was saying in part 1, to get a little bit more scientific or esoteric with it. Now, if you really want to understand the concept of becoming an initiate in an esoteric order, you hear me talk about these orders that are ruled by these ascended masters. And a lot of people have been hearing me talk about this for a while in my videos. And if you really want to understand this whole thing about the chosen ones, you have to understand this whole initiation process that I speak of. And to understand the initiation process, you have to understand how to live astrology. How to live astrology. See, it's one thing to talk about astrology. It's one thing to know your zodiac sign. But it's another thing to get into living astrology. And when you get into living astrology, this is when you get into becoming an initiate and getting into these orders that I speak of. And this is something that in the last days, according to the ancients, you heard me talk about the book of Revelations, this is something that must be revealed. This is something that, information that has to come out, and that the public has to at least give ear to, because everybody has to hear the message so that they can't say they didn't know. So what I want to do now is that I want to help you to understand the 144,000, help you to understand the chosen ones as it pertains to astrology and as it pertains to getting initiated into these galactic orders and things that I speak of. Because you have to understand the numbers. You're dealing with energy. When you talk about getting initiated into these orders, you're dealing with energy planned out at different times and at precise times, and you must, as a vessel, put yourself in certain situations so that you can receive this energy and so that you can give out a certain energy and so that an exchange can take place. And this is what's called an initiation. So to understand the 144,000 and why that number was even chosen, you have to get into understanding the number 12. Very key here. The number 12. And the reason I say this is because, as you know, 12 divides perfectly into 144,000. 12 times 12, of course, is 144. Going into the 144,000. So that number was not chosen by coincidence. They didn't just say, okay, 144,000. That number is the reason why they chose that number, and it goes back to 12. The reason why I say that is because they were up under the system. These were the priests that wrote these scripts, and the priests studied astrology. And they studied astrology. They were up under the system of 12 when they wrote these scripts for the book of Revelation. So they wrote based upon the principle of 12 because this is what the kings were taught. They were taught up under the principle of 12. When you look at the number 12 in the tarot card decks, you'll see that the number 12 is represented by the hanged man, or the hanged man, the man that's turned upside down, hanging by his feet. And this is because the number 12 represents basically a person that has to master themselves. If you understand a king, a true king, or a true royalty, queendom or kingdom, whatever you want to call it, emperor or empressness, all of these nobility goes into mastery of the self. It has nothing to do with just your blood and who you are alone, but it's the ability to be able to live in an organized, controlled environment up under certain rules and regulations. So the number 12 goes into rulership, rules, laws. governance. So I'm saying all that to say that the number 12 personality, when you get into understanding the number 12, this is dealing with teaching man and woman, but mostly male initiates, how to control themselves and how to discipline themselves and how to live in a controlled and disciplined environment, because this is the only way that you're going to survive this chaos, is to learn how to organize and to feng shui the chaos, to live within the chaos. So the number 12 represents males or humanity building. So when you hear me say 12 is an earth measure number, what I'm saying is that you deal with the concept of 12s to build, like the concept of 4 to build. Like a wall has, or a room has 4 walls. You have north, south, east, and west. The concept of 4 goes into understand. You have to first understand the concept of 4 so that you can understand the concept of 12. So we build on 4 and 12. So to understand 12 is to understand structure. It's to understand structure. And this was something that, this was a mentality that the priests were up under when they wrote mostly all of the Bible. As you can see, you have the 12 tribes of Israel. You have the 12 disciples. The number 12 comes up so many different times within the context of the scriptures, but however, there's a hidden principle, and that hidden principle goes into understanding the number 13 and understanding the ascended masters that sit over the 12,000 different groups. In the last video, you heard me talk about there's 12,000 different tribes or 12,000 different groups. And each of these tribes and groups, you can say, have 12 different personalities. So this is where you get the concept of the 144,000 from. The concept of the 144,000 goes into understanding that there were 12,000 different tribes across the world, and these tribes represented various different aspects of the one, or the chosen one, these 12,000 different tribes. And then you have within those tribes 12 different personalities that must be mastered. So what happens is that to really understand the 144,000, you get into understanding that you have tribes on one level, but then you have on another level a group of ascended masters that sit over at least 1,000 different tribes. So you have a group of ascended masters that sit over at least 1,000 different tribes. So you have 12 ascended masters that govern 1,000 different tribes. So you have basically essentially 12 ascended masters that govern 1,000 different people. This is what it goes into. And then when you multiply that, you get 144,000. But the ascended masters sit in another group. See, they sit on the side. So they represent the number 13. So what I'm saying here is that you have the different groups and the orders. Like imagine that you have 12,000 different churches. That's a good example, because there's a lot of churches out there. So imagine you have 12,000 different churches, right? And within those 12,000 different churches, just imagine that each church has 12 members. These 12 members represent the 12 personalities of the zodiac. And these 12,000 different churches, each of them will be governed by an ascended master. What happens is that an ascended master, his or her responsibility may be to govern not just that particular church, but they would have to govern 1,000 different churches. So they would have to govern these 1,000 different churches based upon different modes of information or different doctrine or different information. So like say for instance, one church may be more of a Baptist, or one group may be more of the Baptist type of tribe. And they may have certain rules and customs as Baptists, and they have to live as Baptists. So the ascended master would have to govern them based upon their laws and their rules as Baptists. But then you may have another group or another church or another tribe that are more Methodist. And that same ascended master may have to govern that Methodist church as well. But then you may have another ascended master on the other hand, where, say for instance, he may govern a tantric church, or she may govern a tantric church on one end and then govern more of a Egyptology type of church or school on another end. So those are two different type systems. You see, you have these different systems that are all governed, but they may be governed by the same ascended master, but the people and those particular individuals that are within the systems, those initiates, they don't know each other. They don't know each other's doctrine, and they don't know each other's information. So that's the first thing you got to understand. It's a very kind of like a complex thing to kind of understand, but it's really not, because it's showing you how things are broken down in the world into different, it's like the Chinese Russian doll example. How you have the Chinese doll and it looks like a big doll, but then when you open that doll up, you see that there's another doll inside of that doll, and then there's another doll inside of that doll. So to understand the concept of 144,000, to understand the concept of number 12, the number 13, is to understand how basically these different groups are separate. Like they're separate, but then they're governed by each group may be governed by the same ascended master. So then they're the same. So what happens is that when you have initiates that move up within those different groups, and when they finally make it to the top, they're going to get taught this doctrine of half truth that I'm going to take you into. They're going to get taught this doctrine of half truth, because once they finally make it to the top, what they're going to have to do is basically tell themselves that everything that they just learned, they have to forget about it. They have to forget about it. Why? Because now they're at the very top of this group, and they're getting ready to get initiated into the Ascended Masters group. And they get into the Ascended. This is why it's a separate group. I'm trying to explain to you why the Ascended Masters and the number 13 is separate from the number 12. The number 13 is a separate system and a separate number from the number 12. When you get taught the number astrology based upon the number 12, you learn it one way, and then when you jump and you learn astrology based upon the number 13, you almost have to forget a lot of the things that you knew and get into a whole new system. And this is the same thing that happens with the initiates when they get into the Ascended Master School. So what happens is that these initiates, they were in their tribes and they learn all this information. Say, for instance, they were in the Baptist tribe. I'm just using this as an example. They learn all this stuff about being a Baptist, all of these things, and they're like, baptism is it. People that aren't Baptist, they aren't anything. You know what I'm saying? Like baptism and being a Baptist is the thing to be. And then all of a sudden, when they finally make it to the top of that, over years or whatever, if they finally make it up to the top of that particular system, they master all the different personalities of baptism, the 12 different personalities of being a Baptist, then they'll move to the top. And then from there, they have to forget everything they knew, because now they're getting ready to become an Ascended Master. When you get ready to become an Ascended Master, you have to be able to embrace different schools and different mindsets and be able to show the similarities in the different schools and different minds. You have to be able to understand the similarities in the different schools and different mindsets. And the reason being is because you're going to have to govern, judge people based upon their doctrine and what they believe. But as an Ascended Master, though, meaning that you have to understand everything that they know, but then understand on another end, you understand everything that this other group knows. So what happens is that the Ascended Masters group becomes a separate group. So the 144,000 really is the number of people based upon the initiates, those initiates that will be chosen. But once they finally make it through the different personalities and they finally make it to the top, they're going to find out that actually the number 13 is the universal number, because when you become an Ascended Master, you get initiated into the universal orders. So the 144,000 represent those children of the earth, the chosen ones of the earth that will make it through all the different personalities and all the signs of the zodiac and make it through all these different rituals just to get to 13. Because 13 is the number of change, the number of chaos. It's the number of the universe. See, 12 is the number of trying to control those energies and trying to structure those energies. So the energy starts at 13, because 13 is the beginning and the end. So it starts as chaos. So 13 is a very chaotic number, only to man it is, because man cannot deal with 13 because it can't divide itself. See, man needs 12 because 12 is easily divisible by 4. And man needs the principle of 4 to live in this existence. The principle of 4 is key when you study like quantum physics. Everything starts, when you study even the atom itself is broken down, and you could break it down into 4s. everything in the structural world or the physical world or what we call the material world is based upon this 4, which can go into 12. But then when you get into the number 13, that's when you start to get into decimals and fractions, and we don't have, when you understand decimals and fractions, this is really what you would almost call like an extraterrestrial form of communication when it comes to numbers, because we don't understand decimals and fractions. This is why we have repeating numbers and things of that nature, because in our reality we don't have a grasp over these decimals and these fractions, and this is why we can't build certain structures like pyramids and ziggurats. Like ziggurats, especially a ziggurat, which is like a structure that you would need to have more of an understanding of sacred geometry and decimals to be able to reproduce that and to construct that. And we can't, even right now, we can't build a pyramid and things of that nature because we can't get into decimals and fractions, because these are fourth dimensional mathematical codes when you get into decimals and fractions. So we like what's called whole numbers, you know, numbers that can easily be broken down like 12s, 16s, everything that can be broken down by 4. So saying all that to say that to really understand the concept of the chosen ones is to understand that you have to go through different personalities and different initiations, and when you go to the next level, the next initiation, it may contradict. See, this is getting into the occult now. It may contradict what you just learned on the lower level. You may be like, hold up, when we was on this level, you told us that X, Y, and Z. And then now we're on this level and you're teaching X, Y, and Z. And this is because when you understand the initiation, when you get into understanding the number 13, the number 13 represents change and chaos. So, and it represents the truth, the total truth. And to really understand the total truth, you're going to have to understand what you believe is partially a lie or half truth, which is really essentially a lie. And the reason why it's a half truth is because you can't see the other side because you're blinded. So when you're looking at truth from your point of view, it's a half truth. And when you understand it from the concept of 13, you're looking at truth from all points of view. All points of view. So you're looking down on the situation. So as you move up in these ascended master orders, you have to, everything that you may have learned on one level, you're going to have to forget. You're going to have to rethink. So it's interesting or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of like make a part 2 to kind of like build on and follow up on some of the concepts that I was talking about in part 1, and just to kind of make it more plain, because I don't think a lot of people may have not understood that when I said there's 12,000 groups, that there's actually 12 personalities within each group, and that's where you get the 144 from. But then aside from that, you have the ascended masters, which sit in a separate group, so they're not really a part of the groups because they manage all of the groups, so they have their own group. They sit in a separate group. And then you have in the book of Revelations, they talk a lot about the 7 rays, the 7 rays, and the 7 rays. That's a whole nother system that you have to master if you really want to get into understanding this concept of the chosen one. Because if you remember, in the beginning of the book of Revelations, a letter was written to 7 different churches. That's very key because that represents the 7 different rays. And the reason why a letter was written, because you have to address the 7 different rays on a weekly basis as you go through these initiations and learning how to live astrology. You know what I'm saying? And learn how to make astrology as your way of life, and learning how to make astrology your culture. Because all the occult orders, all the different schools, I don't care what they are, they're just playing out different astrological scenarios within that school. I don't care if it's the school of yoga, the school of tantra, the school of sacred geometry. Any school that you can name that we study, the school of alchemy, all goes back to astrology. So we have to learn how to live as astrologers, and that's what I want to kind of close out on and talk about, is that I've been thinking a lot during this Mercury retrograde cycle, and we are in the Mercury retrograde cycle, and I think it's really difficult to help people to understand a lot of the concepts when I talk about astrology and things like that, because it's something that needs to be talked about and lived on a day-to-day basis, and it's something that needs to be demonstrated. And a lot of people wonder, well, how you get initiated into these occult orders and stuff that you're talking about, these ascended masters. I want to do this stuff. So I decided that since I'm up here on YouTube talking about this stuff so much, that I'm not going to start any call order. So this is not an order, but we're going to start a club, astrology club. And basically in this astrology club, because I know I have my school and you can take the classes if you want to be an astrologer and make money and stuff like that, but it's really not about the money. Like, if you really want to get deep into astrology, it's really about personalizing these attributes and really learning them enough to where you can internalize and personalize them so that you can change your life, so that you can live as an astrologer, so you can really begin to experience life on the fourth dimension. And I think the best way for me to help people to do that is to start a club. And that's what I'm going to do. And in this club, we're going to go through, it's not going to be just like a regular little book club where you just read books. You will read books, but it's going to be a lot more than that. But you're going to have to go through initiations. And all the stuff that I talk about, getting initiated up under the different constellations, like getting initiated up under Aries, we're going to do that. Then we're going to initiate you up under Taurus. We're going to do that. Then we're going to initiate you up under Gemini. Then we're going to initiate you up under Cancer. Then we're going to initiate you up under Leo. Then we're going to initiate you up under Virgo. Then Libra. Then Scorpio. Then Fucus. And then Capricorn. Then Sagittarius. And then Aquarius. And then eventually we'll take you finally into the mysteries of Pisces. So I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a membership club, man. Basically, your ability to I guess get into this club will not be based upon money. So I don't want to have, it's not going to be a club where it's like you got to pay, there'll be a dues amount, but that's it. Like like some type of a membership amount for those people going through certain initiations. And that's just only because of the information that you're going to get from this club and the time that it's going to take me to really manage this club. And I'm going to have to, like, of course, we're going to have a secretary and things of that nature. And certain members will have to have a small salary in this club. But that's all of that aside. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be a small, very small fee, but it's not going to be like getting into the school and the money that you have to pay to get into the school and all of that. See, that's something separate. That's for people that want to do it as a business, as a profession. This is more of a club for people that always that always hear me talk about these initiations and things of that nature, and they want to get into, and they want to like get initiated into this thing or whatever, and really learn how to manifest this energy or whatever in their lives, and to really like learn how to master these different personalities. And they want to learn more about the 7 rays, and they want to know which books to get to research. See, a lot of this stuff I don't want to give out. A lot of these books I don't want to give out on YouTube. Certain things I want to give out in a public format. So that's why I know I'm going to need to go ahead and put this club up. So what's going to happen is it's going to be through my new website, which is coming really soon. I'm going to you'll hear about it. You'll hear more information about it. I'll do a video on it. It's not going to happen like right now because we're in Mercury retrograde. So it'll be sometime in August, though. Definitely, we're going to go ahead and put this club out, and start going ahead and getting members. And then from there, we're going to start doing our group initiations. We'll have different initiations we do. Like, say, for instance, we may do our sun initiation to start out, our solar initiations. Then we may go into lunar initiation. Then we'll go into Mercury initiation. So we'll go get initiated up under the different planets, and then we'll go through the different constellations. So it's going to take a while, you know what I'm saying, because the sun has to, we can only initiate up under different constellations when the sun is in that constellation. So this is definitely something that when you join, because we'll probably start it around the time of Leo, because that's when, of course, it's a solar club. Of course, it's represented by the sun, and the sun rules astrology, and Leo is represented by the sun. So we'll do it sometime in Leo. But every single month, a person will basically have to do another initiation. So it'll take a year to even go through the solar initiation. So this particular club is not something like if you're thinking about doing it, it's really something that you're really going to have to dedicate a lot of time to. A lot of people, they say they want to meet me and things of that nature, and you don't really have to meet me to be in this club. I'm not going to, it's going to be fourth dimensional, straight up. We'll probably have meetings once a year for the club. Like, we'll meet up and have some type of convention or something once a year or something like that. But we're going to do everything through the internet and through the site that I'm going to be setting up. And all your initiations, your meditations, and everything can be through the internet. And I know people are wondering, well, how will you be able to tell if I cheat? And like, say for instance, you give me an initiation to do, and I don't do it, I just tell you I did it. Well, for one thing, that's kind of on you and your spirit, because you won't benefit. Like, say for instance, if I say, well, you can't eat meat for the next 3 months during this particular initiation, and you decide to do it anyway. Well, that's kind of up to you. This is not religion, so that's kind of up to you. You just won't benefit spiritually from what the group is experiencing as we go through these rituals and these initiations together. You won't benefit because you're not following the rules. You're not doing what you said you're going to do. And then two, I can look at a person and say, like, you'll get interviewed to be in this, to be like a part of this club or whatever. It'll be a monthly interview or something like that. Like, I don't know how often it's going to be right now, but it'll be a monthly interview or something like that with myself, and I'll be meeting with each member, and I'll be able to look at. I can pretty much tell if a person's lying to me. I mean, I've been doing consultations for a while, astrological consultations. I've had people lie to me and say they were different people. They weren't. They gave me different birthdays, and I was still able to read them because I can read people. People don't really know this, but I can read you past just looking at your natal chart. I can read a person from just talking to them on the phone and start to picking up on their energy. I don't even have to see a person a lot of times to be able to read them. So, and a lot of times I might not say and tell a person everything that I'm feeling from them, but that's because they're being malicious anyway from the beginning, and they're being deceitful about who they are and their background or something like that anyway. So therefore, it's like, I'm just going to play your game with you and act with you, but I know who you really are, type of thing. So a lot of times I could read people or whatever in these consultations or whatever. So it's the same thing like when I interview a person, a member or whatever, just to kind of see, how that person is doing. Like, this is not, don't look at it like I'm some guru or some saint or somebody that's telling you how to be, or this is some organization that you guys are going to have to worship me and I'm the leader. I'm called, the only thing I'm going to consider myself as far as a title in this club is just organizer. That's it. Because, I mean, the way I see things is that I see it as something that has to continue even when I'm off into other ventures and projects, because I have many ventures and projects that I'm working on, but I still have to make sure that continues to go on. So I would like to leave somebody virtually in charge. I mean, we'll have moderators and things of that nature and different titles within the club and things of that nature within the membership club. But it's just something, I'm saying all that to say, like, it's something that needs to be done. Because of how many videos I have out and just the type of information that I'm really dealing with, is something that definitely people need. I do think that people need to benefit from like a membership club or something like that. So that's going to be coming soon. I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. This is just part 2. Just wanted to kind of like go over a few things from part 1 to make it a little bit more understandable. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down, and until we meet again, I'll leave you all in Namaste.